let's talk politics. Let's talk about what I think is a worrying aspect, one of the worrying aspects of this government. And that is it's full of people like Angela Rayner, the Equalities Minister or Secretary of State and Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson, who are fighting in my view, they're extremely left-wing, extremely socialist, and they're, in my view, fighting some kind of class war. You know, you've got Angela Rayner's absurd workers' rights bill, which basically declares war on employers and businesses, making it impossible to run their business. You know, people who part company from a company on the first day will be able to sue them for wrongful dismissal. That kind of nonsense. All in favour of the workers and making life impossible for the owners of the business, the employers. Meanwhile, Bridget Phillipson is bidding to extend the equality laws. The equality laws that she presides over as Equalities Secretary currently include, quite rightly, the banning of discrimination on the grounds of race, age, gender, disability and sexuality. All good. She wants to expand the remit of the equality laws to include, and I quote, the inequality of social class. Now, what that means is that will empower national and local government to discriminate against the well-off and the middle and upper classes. So a local authority using the equality laws, for example, would be able to say, those people who live in the posh houses, only give them a bin collection every 4 weeks, whereas all the people down on the terraced houses, the working class people, they can have a bin collection every 3 days. They'll be able to do that legally under the equality laws because it will be enshrined in law that social class is an inequality against which we have legislated. That is ridiculous, and that will spread to a national level as well. These people are involved in a class war. They are far more interested in attacking people like me, if you like, you know, reasonably well-off middle-class people, business owners, industrial people. They're far more interested in making our lives hell, attacking us, than actually running the country properly. And that, folks, is damn worrying. Let's speak to the chair of the Great British PAC, Ben Habib. Welcome, Ben.
Good evening, Kevin.
You heard what I said. Your thoughts?
Well, on all of it, I mean, just let's take the Employment Rights Bill to start with. The economy is in trouble. On a GDP per capita basis, we haven't grown since 2022. We have a record number of people on universal credit. We have national debt at an all-time post-World War II high. We have taxation at a post-World War II high. On all metrics, the economy is really suffering, and it's suffering in part because we've had unbridled immigration of cheap imported labor, undermining British workers, effectively putting them out of a job, which is why we've got so many unemployed, but also in part and significantly because of this tax burden and regulatory burden. And when the economy hits the skids the way it's hitting the skids at the moment, the first thing a government should do is reduce taxation and reduce regulation, reduce the burden on business so business can grow, so business can flourish. And through its flourishing, the economy then begins to grow, the cake gets bigger, and actually, naturally, government finances then rebalance themselves because as the economy grows, more taxation is paid, the government needs to lean on businesses less, and you get the organism breathing freely and you know, effectively prospering, which is what we all want. But instead of recognizing the difficulties in which the economy now finds itself, the government is piling on the pressure. It is doing more of the same that actually got us into this problem. So we had the increase in employers' national insurance in the budget, which was a massive burden on employers. And no surprises there. By December, the budget was in October. By December, we saw unemployment going up again. We saw more people out of the job market completely. And she's making the same mistake with the Employers' Rights Bill. Instead of taking the burden off business, as you rightly said, Kevin, businesses are going to stop hiring people. They're just going to say, we're not going to do it. If you can't get rid of people, who are not suitable to the job, if you're forced to employ people who in the first place were never suitable for it, they'll just cease to employ. And that'll be more economic damage. And so what Angela Rayner is doing, what this government is doing, is taking a very bad situation and making it markedly worse. Last year, the economy grew by 0.9%. If you take it on a GDP per capita basis, it shrank. This year, it's forecast to grow by 1%. And again, on a GDP per capita basis, we're shrinking. We are getting poorer and poorer as a result of high taxation, high regulation. What the government needs to do is the opposite of what it's doing. Take the knee off the neck of business and let businesses and employment flourish.
And you have to, so of course Angela, the Deputy Prime Minister, frames her Workers' Rights Bill as a recalibrating of the way businesses are run, so that the employers get all the rights they fully deserve. And then you start to hear of some of the clauses and you think, well, what is this actually aimed at? Now, to be fair, the one I'm going to talk about now, I do believe that Keir Starmer took one look at this and said, even Keir Starmer said, this is ridiculous. This is not anything that can prosper in the real world. It was this. It was that Angela wanted to bring in a law that would prevent employers, the people who run business, contacting their employees, their staff, in any way after 6 p.m. That you weren't allowed, it would be against the law for a boss to email their staff, phone their staff, talk to their staff in any way, against the law. Now that, of course, betrays a profound misunderstanding about how so many businesses work in the first place.
Absolutely.
But what is that really about? That is about sticking it to the bosses, making life difficult for them. It's like sort of up the workers. It's like 1970.
As well, in the way that they wish to broaden the Equalities Act, not to just include ethnic minorities and so on, but to include people who come from what they might regard as a socially or financially disadvantaged background. This is simply a socialist approach to the way they wish to manage the economy. Forget about aspiration, forget about wealth creation, forget about entrepreneurialism. This is about state-managed control of the British economy, which in the end will send us bust. We will be bankrupt. That is where this sorry train ends up. Actually, I'm surprised we've lasted this well under the Labour government so far. Every metric is going wrong. Even the OBR, which is a left-wing organisation supportive of the kind of nonsense that Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves and others want to get up to, even they are saying that the economy is in deep trouble, that the very finely balanced spending commitments that she made with the tax rising commitments that she made in the last budget are no longer balanced, that she's going to have to borrow more money than she thought she was going to have to borrow. And what's her knee-jerk reaction? Tax us more. What she hasn't realized is this burden of taxation and regulation is what's killing the economy in the first place. It's really interesting. I saw in Parliament the other day, Rachel Reeves get up and call Reform UK but politics is sort of magic money trees or whatever you call it. You guys haven't got a serious economic policy because you want to cut taxes, unfunded tax cuts. And in the same parliamentary session, she talked about £119 billion worth of spending. Well, where the hell is that money coming from?
Exactly, exactly right. What about this? The Bridget Phillipson, by the way, in my view, in this cabinet, there are way too many, a worryingly high proportion of sixth form activist type ideologues, you know, who are fighting some kind of class war, some kind of 1970s class war. Let's get the rich, soak the rich, up the workers, all of this. The worst proponent of this, I believe, is the Education and Equality Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, a real little class warrior, no doubt about it. Now, her bid to extend the equality laws to encompass the inequality of social class is really, really worrying. As I said in my intro to this discussion, in effect, for example, it will make it legal for a local council to say, right, the poor people who live in the terraced houses in the wrong side of town, we're going to give them 4 bin collections a week. Now, those rich people who live in the big houses, you know, up in the nice part of town, we're going to give them a bin collection once every 4 weeks because that is legal under the equality laws. This is what her version of equality will encompass: the persecution of the comfortably well-off, of the middle classes, of the people who live in the nice houses, and the kind of veneration of the poor people.
Yeah, and I mean, it is effectively even more damage to the economy because you're setting aside the principle of equality through the pursuit of equality, this progressive discrimination that they have in favor of ethnic minorities, in favor of minority religious beliefs, minority sexual preferences, now extended to the social class structure. All of it, all this progressive discrimination is nothing more than discrimination. The word progressive is designed to hide it, but we're not stupid. Discrimination is discrimination. And no matter how you tart it up, it is still an ugly pig. There should be no discrimination in society. The economy should work on merit and merit alone. And we've got to stop this politics of envy. We've got to stop giving university places to people who don't deserve them simply because we want to level the playing field. What we're doing is dumbing down the United Kingdom. I took a walk down Pall Mall today. I'm slightly digressing, but I took a walk down Pall Mall today. Every single building on Pall Mall is a great building. They were built over 100 years ago. Every single one of them is capable of going for the next 200 or 300 years as a proud testimony to the United Kingdom from the 19th century. There is not a single building that we have built in the last 30 or 40 years which will even last this century out, and certainly none about which we can be proud in the way we can about what our forefathers built. That is the politics of envy. You end up in ever-decreasing circles down a plug hole. That is what Rachel Reeves and this government are going to continue to perpetuate. What we've got to do is put at the heart of the British economic theory, as it were, is aspiration, wealth creation, rewarding of endeavor, allowing people to keep the just rewards of their hard work. That is what made this country great. That is what propelled us to greatness, and we've got to rediscover that.
It's the American system. You've got to look up to those who succeed, those who build businesses, those who build wealth for themselves. You know, multimillionaires, billionaires should be admired.
Not drag them down.
But in this country, particularly under Labour, they are looked down on. And that's my problem with this Labour government, is they don't like success. They don't like wealth. They don't like wealth creation. And they are far too consumed with their own sixth form ideologies to get on with governing this country properly.
Absolutely.
Before you go, Ben, I've got to ask you this. The rape gang scandal, Louise Casey has revealed that asylum seekers now make up a significant proportion of the rape gang members that the police are actively pursuing right now. So what we're learning here is, by the way, earlier in this show, I exclusively revealed we've got these shocking figures I'll get your comment on this. Shocking figures this is from a Freedom of Information request about the number of migrants crossing the Channel without passports. And that is in the past 5 years, since 2020, figures since 2021, in fact, 132,560 migrants across the Channel and arrived without passports. So we don't know anything about these people. 132,000 people we know nothing about. And what do we learn from Louise Casey's rape gang report? That a significant proportion of asylum-seeking males have joined the rape gangs. This is what happens when you let people into the country on a mass scale that you know nothing about.
Absolutely. The reason we ask people to fill in forms and explain who they are and what their background is and what their financial circumstances are, where they came from, who their parents are, etc., when they apply for a visa for the United Kingdom, is in order to be able to assess whether they should be here, whether they pose a threat to this country or whether they're going to add value to this country. When you come across from France in a dinghy, having thrown away your identity, your documents of identity, you're doing it for a reason. And presumably that reason involves the fact that you wouldn't otherwise be welcome in the United Kingdom. These people have got to be detained, incarcerated, kept under lock and key until they are then deported. Anyone entering this country illegally should never be allowed to stay here. Full stop. Yeah. This has gone too far. We've got to take dramatic measures now to rebalance this ship. We are being set aside as a country. We've got to take control of our borders.
We certainly have. I couldn't agree with you more. And at the very, very least, I suggest right now, very quickly, we get a system going where we tell these asylum seekers, these illegal migrants who cross the Channel unlawfully and break into our country, we tell them, well, look, if you arrive without a passport, that's it, you don't get in. Because we know what they're doing, Ben. They chuck their passports and documents into the English Channel as they come across.
Yeah, of course, and but they would do that because they don't want to be found out.
I know.
And because they're illegal. I mean, Suella Braverman had this absolutely spot on in her Illegal Migration Act, which was then watered down. If you enter this country illegally, you will not be entitled to apply for asylum.
Like in Australia.
Like in Australia. They should be in tented encampments, surrounded by barbed wire, under guard by British forces until they are deported.
And in case anybody has some kind of image of a dystopia, a dystopian Britain full of internment camps, you probably, in my view, you'd need one, quite small one.
And they'd stop coming. Because
once the message got through that, when you get across the Channel, they just chuck you in this camp and then they send you home, they'd stop coming. It's not rocket science, Ben.
But can I just say, what is dystopian is allowing these people into civil society to live amongst us, about whom we know nothing. That is dystopian.
Exactly.
That is an assault on civil society.
Exactly right. 132,000 in the past 5 years. I'll leave you to digest that unsavoury fact. Ben, a pleasure to talk to you as always. That is Ben Habib, chair of the Great British PAC.